Disclaimer: the following video contains an organized and objectified remix music tier list from the Super Smash Bros. Series. It contains provoking thoughts and concerns from each remix in the games, all coming from this one random guy on the internet. Music is subjective, so not everyone's thoughts and lists might match with myself and others, so please take this into consideration. There will be anger, rage, and a tiny hint of salt, so watch at your own risk. If you do enjoy this video, however, go ahead and give it a like and share it amongst your peers. And why not go ahead and comment on why my tier list is so bad and why my choices were not to your liking. I would love to see what you'd have to say after watching this video. All things considered, I do really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen in on what I have to say in this video. Now, get comfortable and grab some headphones. Let's get right to it and enjoy the sounds of the remixes of the Super Smash Bros. Series. Enjoy. Hey all, hope everyone is having a fantastic day, and I just want to say thank you very much for your continued support on watching these videos, from this guy who really likes Smash music a bit too much. Starting off today, we reached the second of the two Wrecking Crew medleys, this one being the one created for Ultimate. The themes for this medley only comprises two themes instead of the buttload the Smash 4 remix had. This first plays background music A that plays during the few of the opening levels of the game, and then the power-up theme when Mario grabs the golden hammer. Instead of the electronic jazzy style that the Smash 4 remix has made previously, this Ultimate remix instead straight up ditches the electronic elements, and goes for the jazz ensemble only, which is pretty fantastic, and I like it just a bit better here than the one produced for Smash 4. While I do like the presentation more here, I won't deny the slow start really starts off, well, slow and dull. But once the brass horns hit, they fucking hit you hard, and that's when the remix picks up to a really snazzy one at that. And then the transition from background music A to the power music themes really hits its stride and turns into a memorable experience from off and on the game of Smash. I find this a pretty great fight song with all the simplicity this remix has, and I'm not sure if this was the right call to put this remix lower than others on the tier list, but the simplicity might be the most hindering factor it has. This remix just has no profound gimmick, just straight up jazzy goodness, and maybe that's all it really needs. I'm probably just overlooking it a little too hard. If you are a fan of this style of music, I would accept a top 150 placement at the very highest. Jazz is a nice music style to listen to from time to time, but I'm an avid hard rock and metal enjoyer as well as the amazing video game original soundtracks that the games provide. So the music style is definitely subjective here, being that I can appreciate it, it's just not my absolute favorite to listen to. Tetsuya Shibata is a great composer for what he does though. He actually only has 2 more remixes in the Smash series left, and those last 2 ones, well, let's just say that you are in for a real treat on where I put them at for the tier list. Coming to the third of last of the Splatoon remixes, we have Bomb Rush Blush. Since I'm not too familiar with the series, I'm going off of the info from what it says in the Smash Wiki. Hope that all of it is correct. The information says that Bomb Rush Blush did not originate from the game itself, It actually came from the Nico Nico Chogaiki 2016 concert in Japan, where the Squid sister Callie plays this particular song. This song was then later added to the first Splatoon game on the Wii U through an update where if you scan the Callie amiibo, you can acquire gear for your character, as well as hearing the song Bomb Rush Blush in-game. This song was actually remixed later in the sequel game where you fight Callie from one of the phases for the final boss in the campaign story mode. The approach to this Smash remix comes off of the concert version of the song, with a modern future-based style. The tempo is increased slightly, which primarily uses synths and a wobble bass to get a more electronic synthwave feeling to it, more so than the original. Callie returns to singing for this remix, and obviously from a non-Splatoon fan standpoint just sounds like absolute gibberish. I know I stated that I like lyrical or choir-oriented remixes instead of whatever this is, but Bomb Rush Blush does represent the source material well, so I'll let it slide this time. Speaking about the remix from my thoughts, I actually have a pretty fun time listening to this piece. The vocals aren't that annoying and add to the music pretty well, and speaking about the music, this is one of the few solely electronic tracks that I don't have a problem with. The remix does a great job of remixing this original song with a different electronic take to make it more of a standout song for a fight, and I can appreciate that. Compared to the other remixes, however, I would much rather listen to a lot of the other ones since this remix is still in the early 200s, but it can be a nice change of pace sometimes if it does show up in a game of Smash. Honestly, this really comes down to the preference of a person if they enjoy this remix or not. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the Splatoon community approves and enjoys this piece, so good on you guys for taking a music W for a change. This is actually Tomoya Otani's only remix for the Smash series, and generally does DJ mixing for a lot of the Sega series, so he is pretty well known for this type of music style. He even adds the Amen break, a drum beat that was popularized from the song Amen Brother by the Winstons, that he includes in most of the Sonic the Hedgehog music that he creates, so a cool nod to his original works. You can hear this break at the 32-second mark for this remix. Getting my hands dirty for another Tekken remix, going over the Dojo Japanese style mix this time around. Ryo Hamamoto, who also made music for the Tekken series and the original Dojo music, returns for this remix. The original theme is from Tekken 7 and is played on the Mishima Dojo stage for the first few rounds in a match, which is fitting since the Smash stage from the Tekken franchise is actually Mishima Dojo from Tekken 7. So of course, you're going to have the music from the source material show up here in Smash. What isn't from the source material is the actual music style itself. Prior to making its Smash debut, this song was a more electronic techno style of music that the Tekken series is very well known for, with its slow pace and has subdued vocals, which doesn't make me the biggest fan of. I actually much prefer this Smash remix more so than the original. It has a faster pace and uses classical Japanese instruments as the title to the remix states, like the pan flute for its melody replacing those god-awful vocals, and as well as the shamisen. Dude, I seriously need to look up the pronunciation if I've been saying it wrong this whole time. We also have taiko and bass drums for the background, and while the subdued vocals are still present in this remix somewhat, I really do consider this the golden standard of using a different musical style away from the source material to make a new Smash remix. I'm sure many will disagree with me on that statement and prefer the original, but just remember that music is subjective, so don't get your panties in a twist just because my opinion makes you a little heated. Regardless, as much as this is a solid remix, it doesn't compete with the other remixes I have in store for y'all just yet. I'm sure some people remember where I put the other Japanese style remixes, such as the ones made by Hidia and Hide, and even the Art of Fighting remix that Ryo Hamamoto also made as well. I'm just not the biggest fan when it comes to this type of music. mainly for reasons being that it does not fit the aspect of what Smash really goes for. You can practically call me uncultured at this point. I mean, this remix does fit Mishima Dojo aesthetically very well, but that's besides the point. This is personally my favorite remix of this Japanese style, and this is the last time you'll see this musical style for this tier list. Like I said, it's at least very fast-paced and powerful and has a serious tone, unlike the Hidia and Hidia remixes. Seriously, I have no clue on what they were thinking when making those remixes. Now, this is one music style of remix that I would honestly not really put up so high, but I cannot deny that this is a very exquisite take on a pretty neat title theme. Oh yeah, this is the title theme for the absolute horseshit Wii U game, Wii Sports Club, and plays on its title screen. To whoever bought this game, I feel so sorry for you. But then again, you bought that garbage game, so I take that apology back. But anyways, the music is at least not that bad. The original was comprised of a synth for the melody with electronic drums and a bass guitar supporting it to make a smooth wave-like feel. This Smash remix blows it out of the water in my opinion. It has a faster tempo with a marching band feel that reminds me of those parades thrown in South America like Rio in Brazil. Somewhere tropical at least. Why does this remind me of Wii Sports Resort more than Club? Those snare drums and brass horns for the remix clash so perfectly and fit the aesthetic of the music very well. If Nobuko Toda was going with this style of remix, he did a pretty bang-up job with it. But I would expect not a lot of people would generally like this style very much. I myself was pretty skeptical at first too. It didn't really click with me all that much until later down the line when ranking these remixes for the project. It's definitely not the best fight song to listen to as well. The percussion helps move it along, and the brass have a good melody to play with it at least, so it can be somewhat feasible for a good fight if you don't think about it too much. Not the best thing in the world, but far from bad. Plus this remix isn't very popular and goes pretty unnoticed, so hopefully at least someone found their new favorite remix to listen to here with this video. We have our first Pokemon remix of the day now. I have a few more that I will explain in this video shortly, but before I dive into this one, I just want to say that this Pokemon remix is actually my personal favorite one in the whole Smash series due to nostalgia alone. But let's go over it real quick before I continue. We have the Battle Wild Pokemon theme from the Generation 3 Pokemon games, Ruby and Sapphire on the Game Boy Advance. This occurs when the player encounters a wild Pokemon to fight and capture. This theme plays throughout the entire game, so you'll hear it constantly. While that might make it a downgrade for some, this theme holds a very special place in my heart since Pokemon Emerald was one of my very first Pokemon games, and the one I have the most fondness for. I was originally going to have this remix way higher up initially, but I decided to put it back a bit lower on the list, and here are my main components on why I did so. First, the remix for Smash plays exactly like the original theme, such as its tempo being the same and mostly the same musical aspects as well. This is a pretty faithful adaptation to the original source material, being a remastered version to the Game Boy Advance theme, so no originality to it at all. Second, this remix plays twice before the loop, but what's weird is that the second part of the remix mostly uses strings and this weird breezy sound that I believe tries to make it more atmospheric, which can work, but leaving out the other instruments just to only produce strings only does so much and in turn make the remix a bit low in comparison. And finally, the last reason, where the fuck are those trumpets? Generation 3 music was so memorable due to the oversaturation of that compressed trumpet or horns barging in the background throughout the entire game. The remix not really having any loud brass and just goes full orchestra with only string and wind instruments makes it a bit of a downgrade. So those are my reasonings, and I'm really saddened by this revelation. I still do enjoy this remix to bits, but I have to overanalyze and overlook every single remix to make the perfect remix tier list, and in turn, put this one on the chopping block. In all honesty, I really should have put this much lower, even far back to the late 300s, but my bias truly shows no bounds, and I ended up putting it here in rank 221. Hey, wait a second, 221, that's the halfway mark. Holy shit, only halfway to go now. Things are definitely looking up from here on out. And not even one remix from the other, we have yet another Shogo Sakai remix. He really is all over the place. Here we have Fever from Dr. Mario, originally on the NES, and it is one of the two choices for background music when starting up a game. The instrumentation for this remix is all based on a synthesizer, but has some key elements like an xylophone playing the main melody at the beginning of the song, and techno sounds with various percussion instruments present throughout the remix. One word that reminds me of this remix every single time without fail is nostalgia. This is such a neat little piece that you can't seem to not smile whenever this plays. If you don't, I will just think you're not simply human. This remix has been a part of the meme culture for a good while now, and still a very popular track to this day. It's such a free-spirited and happy musical piece that I wouldn't think that this was a part of a video game that was meant for popular video game characters duking it out. It's a bit funny whenever this remix gets chosen for a fight, and I think it fits the comedic style of a random 8-player free-for-all more than anything. If played in the context of a serious one-on-one fight, then it is less appealing, which I heavily rank on that side of the spectrum, more than the wackiness of it all. I also rarely see this remix played, maybe because people are dumb and do not put the probability of this remix higher up for their personal My Music tabs. But if it was played in a serious match, then I would just think that another remix would fit much better. I personally had this remix up way higher while drafting due to the popularity and nostalgia of it all, but looking back with my non-biased lenses, I thought otherwise and feels like it plays near the middle of the pack. Kinda glad that I did that, but if there was no context for fight music and this was being picked as a more musical style approach more than anything, this is definitely a top 50 remix in that regard. No contest. Okay, so remember when I said that there were only 7 64 remixes back in my first video? Well, looks like I actually forgot one. Yeah, I know, I'm full of shit. I didn't actually forget it, this was super intentional if it was blatantly obvious. But how could I ever put one of the most iconic Smash remixes in history that low on the tier list? But for those who don't know, this is Gourmet Race from Kirby Superstar on the Super NES, a minigame in which Kirby and King DDD race to the finish while eating as much food as they can. While Hirokazu Ando never made music for the other 7 original series back when Smash was just a tiny Nintendo project, he actually composed the entire Kirby series soundtrack during its inception and made a new remix for Gourmet Race for the first Smash game. The remix keeps that same upbeat tempo as the original, but makes use of brass horns for its melody instead of whatever the original had. I can never really figure out what the original Gourmet Race sounds like to this day. This remix is still compressed as all hell, but I guess it's a certain type of charm that comes with the territory. I'm sure everyone and their mom has heard this remix at least once in their lives. This song has been through meme hell and back a dozen times over, and that is why I believe it is the most recognizable and popular Super Smash Bros. Series remix to this day. Even if the memes over this remix fluctuate from time to time, the competitive Melee and 64 scenes will never hear the end of it due to Dreamland 64 being a legal stage with Gourmet Race 64 being the only song that plays on it. It is really fun when people in the crowd clap along to the melody of the song. It truly is an enlightening experience if you ever decide to go out to a regional or national Smash tournament for a top 8 showing. The only downside is that it's just a bit too old, and I'm definitely an old geezer for putting this remix disrespectfully low. Yeah, I know I should put it higher, and I actually did during the drafts, but same as Fever before it, decided to bring it down a notch to this level of the tier list. We are now halfway to this tier list, and man, this remix just doesn't hold a candle to a lot of the other newer remixes from the newer iterations of Super Smash Bros. Games, in my super honest opinion. I will, however, still hold it in high regard. It has a legacy and continues to shine on to this day. Keep fighting the good fight, Gourmet Race 64, even if you are an old fossil to me. Guess we are still going to keep that old school music train going. This is the Galaga medley that features music and sound effects found in the arcade classic Galaga. Various jingles and sounds from the game are featured all over the place here. It'll be a pain to list all of the jingles, but I will list what music tracks are featured here at least. First starts off with the game start theme when starting up the game on the very first stage. Some wacky shenanigans then play out with the original sound bites from the game, then plays the Fighter Stolen theme when your fighter gets captured from Boss Galaga. The perfect theme when completing a challenge stage then plays right after, lastly playing the name entry theme when you get a top score on the arcade cabinet to input your name, which then loops back to the beginning. Such a wacky medley to compose for Smash. Gotta give it up for Yusuke Takahama for this one, once again. Galaga isn't really known for its music, but the sound effects and jingles are iconic, just like with Pac-Man. Smash is truly video games the games. I'm just really glad that this remix is what it is and not from that boring Pac-Man remix that was second to last on this tier list, only providing the sound effects and jingles to make such a lame piece. This remix does itself justice at least, by actually making the effects unique to listen to in different ways, and also adding in a sick guitar solo during its challenge stage theme in the middle of the remix. Not to mention the electronic drums playing throughout the remix itself, adding in a very fresh beat. This type of music would go perfect for something like what Tetris or Pac-Man did with their 99 Battle Royale interpretations. In fact, I would love to see a Galaga 99 in the future one of these days. That would be super awesome to see. But in my belief, if something that is super old school sounding is played in Smash, I wouldn't really like to listen to it and would rather listen to something else. This remix is just a big mashup of said old school chiptune music, and it's just a bit random and cumbersome to listen to while playing in the game. I tried my best to play this in Smash, but it really just didn't sit right with me, believe it or not. Not that this remix is bad or anything, I really do enjoy listening to it by itself, but not the same can be said while playing it in Smash. I do think that the remix is regarded as a great remix by the Smash community, so I think this would be good to set this remix right here on the tier list, but I think I could have put it a little higher, but I just decided not to.
Mona Pizza, makers of the world's best pizza. Fresh sauce and cheese galore, brought straight to your front door. Mona Pizza, makers of a tasty pizza. Our pie's crispy, crunchy crust.
Running into our second vocal remix on our tier list, and a really short but fun one at that too. We got Mona Pizza's song from the Game Boy Advance game WarioWare Twisted, where it will appear whenever a player goes through Mona's microgame section in the game. This remix plays similarly to the original song from the game with the same tempo, but updated instrumentation that has the same unique jazzy feels, so basically a one-to-one recreation which loses the originality factor when ranking this remix. However, the real spotlight went to the vocals here. Christina Pacer, who voices Mona in the original WarioWare games, returns for her singing role with Nate Bildorf and Andy Harpence singing the Pizza Dinosaur Brothers in that section of the remix. Japanese vocals feature Gaki and Kubochi, who also return for Mona and Pizza Dinosaur respectively for their vocal roles as well. A really dumb guilty pleasure of mine for these WarioWare remixes is I really enjoy the lyrical remixes for all of them. Well, the ones that are in English anyways, and that's probably why I have them past the halfway point on my tier list. Also, another guilty pleasure is I like to sometimes sing along when I'm alone in the car. Maybe I shouldn't put that in. Ah shit, too late. Anyways, this is a fun remix that I can get behind. The music is really great, and I like that electric guitar solo when the Pizza Dinosaur section plays. I guess my only negatives is that I don't really think it's the best fight song on Earth, and my pick for the worst out of the 3 WarioWare lyrical remixes that were made in Brawl. But also at the end they used this weird robot voice to play Mona's first part, and I'm just like, why? Why isn't Mona singing her cue? Kinda disappointing, but the rest of the remix is still a banger to me. Should have probably put it a little lower, but I could be biased every once in a while, right? We got another Pokemon remix on our hands, the first of 3 from the old school days of Melee. A lineup of music that Melee had to offer at the time still goes super hard to this day. This is the main theme found on the Game Boy games Pokemon Red and Blue. Listening to this theme might be familiar to you since I already covered the Brawl remix for this very theme back on another video. Instead of that version of the remix being a bit too modernized and a little bit of a faster pace, this version of the main theme brings it down a notch with the speed, and has a more orchestral presentation. You might think that these are all negatives, but I concur that it feels right when listening to this remix. It starts off with the same opening as previously found with the Brawl remix that plays the opening cutscene of the game, and then plays the usual title screen theme throughout the entirety of the song. The orchestral music for this remix just sounds more genuine and likable to listen to, and has a sense of adventure and, dare I say, a bit more magical feeling to it all. And not to mention that choir. Oh yeah! At the end of the remix, they just pop out of nowhere to play the melody of the music with the orchestra, and man, they hit it out of the park for this one. I've always had a soft spot for choir or vocals in music, it just makes me a giddy person for some reason. This remix is a bit too short for what it's worth, however. It can constantly drag on a bit too much when playing long fights in Smash, and it's not that upbeat with the instruments and speed of the piece, which Brawl did a lot better on, but I actually like the slow change of pace from time to time, and this remix just does it better. I probably should have put this remix a tad bit lower than what I have now, but I feel like putting it here is just right. Shoko Sakai always delivers amazing remix quality every single time. Taking on another Mario remix, we have the main theme for Super Mario 64. So, I'm not too sure why this is called the main theme, but this plays when Mario goes through the many courses throughout the game, such as Bomb Bomb Battlefield and Whomp's Fortress. There is also a bridge to the opening theme playing near the end of the song, before a loop back to the beginning. Again, why was this called the main theme for Super Mario 64? I think it would be better saying one of the course names from the game instead, but maybe I'm in the wrong here. I just didn't expect that to be called the main theme, but a theme for a specific course. Alright, I'm just getting a little heated over nothing but the title here. The remix itself is a generally fun time to listen to. It really does envelop the quirkiness of the Mario music at the time, with an electronic synth covering the whole remix, with an increased tempo from the original. The transitions from the main theme to the opening theme here are great, and the music choice really encapsulates what the Mario franchise goes for in its music style. At least it sometimes does. I don't know what else I can say about this remix, to be honest. It's a bit too weird for my liking to be placed much higher on my tier list, but it is far from mediocre. There has to be that one song where it's just vastly different from the rest of the soundtrack, and I think that this remix is the perfect fit, and should be placed here. It's fun to listen to at times, really no complaints for it to play during a Smash game, but it is a bit too short. I know this is a very popular piece of video game music history and will be treasured for generations, but you know, sometimes the popular ones are just not always the best ones for specific circumstances in that regard. We've arrived at every Yoshi main's theme song, which is Yoshi's Tale from Yoshi's Story 64, where the theme originally played during the end credits of the game. Unlike from the original being really slow and sounds like something that was made from a preschool TV show, this remix made it more fast and upbeat with an overhauled tropical presentation to the music, which adds a steel pedal guitar, synth, and various percussion instruments like a steel drum and bongos. And of course, you cannot forget about the whistling and other Yoshis singing the main melody, which also happened in the original theme. But unlike the original theme, it is much more tolerable and expresses a good vibe when playing a game of Smash. This is a very solid remix and a very lengthy one as well, clocking in at around 3 minutes. which is one of the few 3-minute remixes in the soundtrack lineup. I thoroughly enjoy this remix too, being the only few Yoshi songs that I can genuinely like to be played as background music, but I do see how it is not the best to play in a more serious setting, let alone it can be a tad bit annoying to listen to those Yoshi chants. Sure, it is very charming and fits the style of the Yoshi series, but I assure you that a lot of people would be clasping their ears if they listened to the same Yoshi chants 4,000 times in a row. Unless if you're Yoshi main, you guys live for this shit. At least I'm not dunking on this remix. I think this is a fair placement for what it's worth, and I generally like the music presentation that it's going for, unlike the hellscape that was the original ending credits. My god, I thought Yoshi's New Island was bad, but this is just as worse. Even the Yoshi chants don't sync with each other, it's super cringeworthy. Glad they fixed it with this remix, or this would have been one of the remixes that are at the way bottom of the tier list for sure. Bringing back another Star Fox remix, we have the Star Fox Medley. The themes for this medley are used from the original Super NES game Star Fox, and has 3 of them to go over. It first starts off with the Venom's theme when the crew goes through the Venom level. Secondly, the map screen when you choose which level to go through next. And finally, the Space Armada theme, when the crew goes through the Space Armada level then repeats through a loop. The remixes play through a live orchestra, and all themes have greatly been made with faster paces between their original counterparts. This remix was a classic all the way back in Melee when everyone was playing on Corneria when they were babies, and it's still very popular till this day. I actually was going to put this remix a bit higher on the tier list when I was doing my drafts, but one thing made me stop and think that I shouldn't put this remix so high up. It's actually a very short remix, believe it or not, clocking in at around 50 seconds, making this one of the shortest remixes we have on the tier list to go over. Well, at least it's not Bomb-Man stage level of shortness, but still having less than a minute of runtime is not ideal, especially when playing long matches of Smash in mind. That being said, this is a classic, and I stand by it being super awesome. Definitely one of the best orchestrated sounding remixes in the history of Smash, and this shit is more than 20 years old now. Super fast paced, has that actiony spirit to it, and could honestly hold up with long runs of Smash time, even with me saying that this is one of the shortest remixes. When I was young, I was very enthralled with this music piece that I did not know that this remix was so short until recently doing this project. I was really shocked when I found out. Was pretty stumped too. Still, this is a very solid remix and deserving of going over the halfway point for this tier list. Guess it's a good time as any to talk about this Fire Emblem remix, and another orchestrated remix at that too, being Beyond Distant Skies, Roy's Departure from the Japan-only Game Boy Advance title, Fire Emblem The Binding Blade. This remix appears during the first chapters of the game when it is the player phase to control Roy and his army. This remix's composition features a live orchestra that is very similar to a march. Very fitting since you're basically marching throughout the chapters to kill all of your enemies too. Damn, no quarter given. The remix doesn't really feature anything noteworthy minus a key change that is found in the middle of the remix, when it plays another variation of the theme a second time before looping back to the beginning. This is a very powerful orchestra piece to a fairly well-known Fire Emblem song. It does its job quite well, but a live orchestra only takes you so far for me, especially at the very high tiers on this tier list. Even as a Fire Emblem fan, since this is a title that was never released outside of Japan, it doesn't hold any value to me. If only that were the case if it actually made its way stateside. Not only that, but I don't find the key change in different instruments playing the same melody necessary here. Makes the remix pad out more time than it should have, like what most of the other Ultimate remixes do in that regard. It works in some Ultimate remixes, which I will get to much later, but it honestly doesn't fit here personally. Like, this remix is fine. I don't have trouble playing this in a match of Smash from time to time, and at least the music is great here. But I feel like it just needed to have some more to it, such as an increased tempo, or adding an excerpt from another song of the game to complement it at the end. Definitely did not exceed my expectations on that front. I originally had it well in my personal high to top tier status of Smash remixes, and when listening to this remix a bit more, I do believe that it shouldn't be at my best of the best remixes in Smash history. But it's definitely a remix that should be respected more than the others I already mentioned, so I generally think that rank 211 is perfect for this remix. Time to talk about another SNK remix, this time covering the cult run-and-gun arcade classic, Metal Slug. This theme appears throughout the entirety of the Metal Slug franchise during its title theme and levels, and has taken different adaptations through each game. For now, we are solely focusing on the first Metal Slug game, which you can hear this theme directly through Chapter 1 for the game. The Smash remix covers the usual orchestral arrangement that the series is known for, but takes a certain rock approach with an electric guitar playing throughout the remix, with a synth taking the main solo lead, replacing the usual saxophone bit for its melody. Comparing the remix to the original, however, they both have the same tempo and sound very similar to one another if you happen to listen to both this Smash remix and the original side by side. The only difference is the newly implemented electric guitar and synth, and that the Smash remix just has upscaled music to make it sound much better than what was found in the arcade. This is a very classic theme to an iconic arcade franchise, and I appreciate SNK for actually putting a lot of their different music over the years to be put into Smash, besides just Fatal Fury and King of Fighters. Goddamn, that was the best decision ever made, and it further proves that the King of Fighters Stadium is my favorite Smash stage of all time. I mean, I can oodle SNK music for hours on end, but now isn't the time for that. I really appreciate this remix for what it's worth, but it can't really justify itself to be on a higher rank due to its lack of originality from the original song, so this seems like a good place to put this at for the tier list. Right, we've reached the all-too-familiar hot take for today's episode. Man, can't wait to see what fun comments I will see from this placement alone. This is Victory Road from Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire on the Game Boy Advance, and plays whenever the player goes through the Victory Road and Elite Four sections of the game. As opposed to the loud compressed trumpets that played in the original track, the remix features a much more sinister progressive rock style, ditching the orchestra march feel, and using a rock band aesthetic with an added synth to make it feel very intense and foreboding. This certainly does make this an insane boss battle fight, even when the original was only meant to be played through an overworld area for the original Pokemon game. Gotta hand it to Motoi Sakuraba for his ingenious ingenuity to make a theme like that being played for this remix, and it is also perfect to play during an intense one-on-one Smash fight. Oh, but wait, if I'm saying all these nice things, then why don't I have it pretty high up on this tier list? Well, to put it straight, I never really liked this remix to begin with. This just in, local internet man coming back with the hottest take of the century. Okay, yeah, I know, I should probably put this one way higher than I have now. I see why a lot of people really like this remix. It's intense, it's super high quality, it's from a goddamn Pokemon game of all things, I get it. From me being a genuine Generation 3 Pokemon enjoyer, I should have super bias towards this remix, but I just really don't. I can't really explain it. It's not awful, of course. That's why it's in the mid-section of my tier list. But just the tone and atmosphere I get from listening to this remix makes me somewhat ill for whatever reason. This really goes back in my nails to a chalkboard metaphor I said in the past. Those guitar riffs just feels like someone loudly screeching, and I find it really distasteful here. I know that a lot of people are going to complain, and that's fine. I deserve it for putting this Sakuraba classic so low, but personally I couldn't care less about this remix. As I said, it's still a great remix to listen to from a Smash game standpoint, but I would rather listen to some other amazing Pokemon remixes that the series offers, which I think are much better than this one. We finally arrived at our first of two Punch-Out remixes. First up for the two is Minor Circuit, appearing on the original NES game Punch-Out. This plays when Little Mac fights Boxer from the Minor Circuit division in the original game. But this remix actually takes inspiration from the Wii installment of Punch-Out, and uses that name and theme from said game to incorporate that solved music into this Smash remix. The remix acts like a one-to-one recreation of that theme from the Wii game, but the arranger, Koji Hayama, obviously had to tweak it to suit its own personal twists, in the crazy way that he does best. The music hugely derives from the synthesizer to play the main melody, with accompanying electric guitar and drums to play in the background. And of course, in unique Hayama fashion, he incorporates the "Hey!" and "Oh yeah!" sound quips near the end of the remix. Like, yeah, it's different, but is it really necessary at all? Apparently the sound team and Sakurai thought so and gave it the green light. Speculation aside, I think this is a very fun remix to listen to in and out of the game. I feel like it acts more like a warm-up song than an actual fight song if I have to be honest. Even though it does kinda hype me up in the game if this is played. Not only that, but this remix sounds a bit weird too. Not saying that it's bad at all, but I just find it awe-inspiring how this came to be. Can't really explain what I'm listening to. It maybe sounds like something you listen to at a rave when you are on a massive Zudu trip to me. And that's all I can think of at this point in time. This is far from the best, but far from the worst type of remix that does its own thing, and I respect it for what it is. Perfect placement for the middle of the road, I would say. Grooving on through is Luigi Raceway from Mario Kart 64. First appearing on the Nintendo 64, this theme plays on the very first track of the Mushroom Cup, Luigi Raceway. But this theme is also shared with Mario Raceway, Wario Stadium, and Royal Raceway in tandem. All of these tracks, except for Wario Stadium, have been repurposed throughout the years of the Mario Kart series, taking in new remixes along the way. A very classic theme. The instrumentation for this Brawl remix, however, uses a more synthesized approach with lots of brass-sounding instruments, just like the original song, but with an added killer electric guitar solo of the main melody, before the loop back. And oh man, that guitar solo is fucking sick. We also have the bass and drums as usual in the background, with a small increase in tempo for this remix. A pretty solid remix all around with little issues. Well, honestly, the main issue I have with this one, it's just a bit slow. All I'm saying, if they increased the tempo just a tad bit, I can guarantee that it would be much more of a banger than it already is. I actually tried putting this theme in a 1.25 playback speed on YouTube, and it wasn't that great really, so I'm sure a lot of people just like it how it is, which I can accept that too. That's all I really have to say about this one. Just a fun remix to listen to during a Smash fight and by itself. I'm kinda surprised more people don't really talk about this one, but maybe since I'm putting this remix here on the tier list, kinda speaks for itself.
You know, I'm actually surprised that I'm even covering Zelda remixes still, given that I'm apparently not a fan of them. But this one snuck up on me and actually proved me wrong on how they can be also great remixes to listen to at times. This remix originally plays in the Super NES title A Link to the Past, and covers two themes. First is Dark World. We have already covered the Brawl remix from this theme, but I'll say it again. It plays when Link traverses the overworld through Hyrule's mirror counterpart, the Dark World. And the second section of this remix features Dark World Dungeon, which plays when Link explores the dungeon from said world. This remix is entirely orchestrated, and given my somewhat distaste for full orchestrated music at the beginning of my tier list short essays, well, I must be entirely a different person at this point, cause I really enjoyed this orchestrated remix in particular. The tempo is faster with a heavy emphasis on its brass, string, and percussion instruments throughout the remix. Even without the harder instrumentation like synths or electric guitars being absent here, this does a great job at conveying the tone of exploring unknown worlds that we all know and love so much. We still have a few more fully orchestrated remixes to go over, believe it or not. I'm not heartless with these types of presentations, but they just don't have a great fighting game feel to them. I have to be that guy to say that. This remix definitely does it better than the rest for sure, but man, there are so many other really great remixes for this game that it's killing me that I have to put some below the 200 mark. It is insane how difficult ranking all of these music pieces are. Coming to our only Pikmin related remix for today is Stage Clear and title theme from the first Pikmin game on the GameCube. The Stage Clear theme is actually the end of day where a cutscene plays when Olimar and the Pikmin travel out to space to escape the creatures that roam around at night. This remix also features the results theme from when the cutscene ends on how the player progressed through the day. So technically there are actually 3 themes in this remix. The title theme for the game then plays at the second half of the remix and loops back to the end of day. This remix has an orchestral style from the original themes and includes vocal chanting and bagpipes that play the melody. Something that we rarely see in a Smash remix, and I welcome the rarity since it helps very well with this remix. A pretty solid piece all around that doesn't stray too far from the original songs that are presented here, but stray from being too original since they use different instruments and heavily increase the tempo. Obviously, the middle and ending parts are the best parts of the remix. The beginning, not so much since it's a bit slow and not a whole lot going for it. This is the end of day theme I'm talking about, and yes, it plays how it does in the original game. It would have been great to only hear this piece at the beginning of the remix and only the beginning, meaning that I would rather have something else entirely replaced when looping back. I think that would fix and fit well than what we have now. But I don't absolutely hate it. I mean, if I did, I would have put this remix somewhere in the low 300s. I like the music representation this remix has, definitely better than the other Pikmin remixes that tried before it, and this one came out in Brawl. However, it's not the best Pikmin remix. I still have one more left to cover, and it's a bit closer than you think. But it is nice seeing a beloved Nintendo franchise have somewhat pretty great music in Smash, even if the original music is not very noteworthy to fight to. Finally, arrived with the third and last Star Fox 64 main theme entry on the tier list. This time I will cover the Brawl remix in the Smash series. This plays in the title theme for Star Fox 64 and is a staple theme for the franchise going forward. Unlike with the live orchestra that the Melee version used previously, this Brawl remix has an electric rock approach to it, prominently using synths and electronic drums for the majority of the remix, with subtle hints of electric guitar in the background. This remix takes on the form similarly used in the original theme back on the Nintendo 64, but with a much faster tempo and a more heavier style of instruments. This remix does a great job of presenting itself as a hardcore background music for a fight in Smash, and I'm all for it. And that's all I really like about it. Can't help but feel that this remix is pretty forgettable, unlike with the Star Fox medley from Melee I went over a little while ago. When doing research for the project, this remix completely slipped my mind, and I didn't even know that this was in the game to begin with. Might be hating on this for no reason, but I quite like it when I set it as background music for Smash. It's just my nuanced type of thing more than anything, really. I also said that I much prefer the orchestra-related Star Fox remixes beforehand, and I still stand by that statement, but I do admit that this remix is pretty solid nonetheless. Perhaps over time I might come back around and give this one another listen and maybe give it a better ranking. But at this point in time, I don't have any feelings towards it. I'm sure more people would like to have this one a bit higher, but my decision in all of this is unanimous. Time to talk about a remix that I have a guilty pleasure for liking a little too much. This is Sand Ocean from the Super NES game F-Zero, and plays when racing on the Sand Ocean track in the game. The remix is a bit of a one-to-one recreation of the original track having the same tempo and stylized music, using a synthesizer throughout the entire remix. I know I said before that I am not a huge fan of going back to the old F-Zero games music, when I believe F-Zero X and GX are just so much better. The remixes that were featured in Smash 4 and Ultimate pale in comparison to the super magnificent Melee and Brawl remixes from the F-Zero series that I still have yet to go over. This is in fact the last of the Ultimate remixes for the F-Zero franchise, and I really almost put this one way down on my tier list, given that it really sounds almost like the original Sand Ocean, just upscaled with higher quality. But you know, as soon as I gave it a listen, and then another listen, and then listen to it 10 times over, I've come to the conclusion that I really do love this remix a lot. It embraces the old F-Zero music so hard that I had to double take myself. Can't believe that I'm actually saying this, but the added bassline and features that Tanaka provided are actually exquisite to the ears. I don't know what came over me, but this remix has a special place in my heart now. Obviously, since it almost plays exactly like the original, of course I'm putting this somewhat low on the tier list, but man, this has to be one of the most biased placements I had in quite a while. This remix just pumps me up in a certain way that I can't really describe, and makes me feel like I'm being dragged in this futuristic desert. Video game music is truly magical. This is also Hirokazu Tanaka's last remix for the Smash series. I know that I really put him through the grinder with how he only uses synth music through old game music, and doesn't really differentiate a lot of the original source material. Well, this remix itself is using pretty old music from the original source material, but what an absolute banger that he went off from, in my own personal opinion. Next up is a funky remix from the 3DS title, Super Mario 3D Land. There are two themes playing in this remix as the title states. The first part of the remix plays the ground theme, and then the underwater theme, which is technically the beach level theme when Mario isn't underwater, so you can say that this is another typo. Again. But yeah, this second section with the underwater theme gradually speeds up the tempo over time, making it sound like it plays during the hurry up section of the theme, when the time for the level only has 100 seconds left, before stopping and then looping back to the ground theme all the way back to the beginning. Which is generally my biggest complaint with this remix. This isn't however the first Smash remix to do this, but just blatantly stopping the music for a second and then going back to the beginning portion of the remix just really takes me out of the enjoyment, whether it be listening to it in a game of Smash or not. The worst part about this remix is that when playing on Battlefield or Omega versions of the 3D Land stage, the music that the stage is based on, you'll only listen to the 45-second rendition of the ground level theme and will constantly loop over and over till the game finishes. This legit has the same stupid problem as it does with the Paper Mario medley. And not a single person has taken this shitty song off of their My Music tabs for this stage, which has the max range a song can go for this stage. Talk about fucking torture. Well, those are my negative things about the remix, and yeah, they did cost some points for it being too high on my tier list, but the music here is generally great, and I have no complaints over it. Especially that saxophone. So sexy. I'll give it a pass on not being too terrible of a remix, but those bad points really made this remix not the best that it should have been.
Last on today's video is the Onett and Winters themes from the Super NES cult classic Earthbound. As you would already know, this remix plays both the Onett theme when Ness and the party are traveling through the town Onett, and then the Winters theme from a section of the main story where Jeff escapes his dormitory in Winters to rescue Ness and Paula, which also plays similarly to the town Snowman from Earthbound Beginnings, which I already covered from my first video. Man, time really does fly, huh? This remix also includes a brief inclusion when Ness steps out from his home and onto his grand adventure, which is a brief portion of Pollyanna I Believe in You from Earthbound Beginnings as well. The music in this remix plays a bit similarly to the original themes, but with an upbeat and faster tempo twist. Onett's theme has a prominent brass section with trumpets playing the main melody, with an added acoustic guitar, bass guitar, drums, and a cool accordion piece in the mix too, while the Winters theme has the same chilling sequence like it does in the original, but with an added bass guitar and cymbal variation, making it a bit livelier. A lot of game elements that are found in the original game also play during this remix. This is a pretty unique track in my opinion, especially the Onett theme, which gives it that beginning vibe of an awesome adventure that is waiting to unfold. I don't really have much else to say with the Winters theme, however. It plays just like in the Snowman remix in Brawl, minus those haunting vocals. However, I do like this version more than that one due to it playing a bit faster, and the added bass and cymbals in this portion doesn't make it too melodramatic and a bit more fun to listen to. Unfortunately, you can't really hear this portion very well, even during a game of Smash unless you turn the volume like super way up. If the remix was just Onett or maybe another song from the game other than Winters was being played here, then I think we would finally get a solid Earthbound remix on our hands. But it's still pretty good in my opinion due to the spunky nature of the music that this was given. Sounds and feels like what Earthbound as a game really is, and I can appreciate it from that aspect alone. Hey everyone, like I said at the beginning of the video, I hope you are all having a fantastic day. Finally down to 200 remixes and past that halfway point. The finish line is still a ways off, but that much closer to it now. I unfortunately want to apologize once again about my voiceovers for this section of the video, and in earlier parts of the previous videos, cause those voiceovers were definitely not the ideal quality that I wanted, but due to time constraints, I kinda had to leave them like that and move on with the project. Don't know why my mic decided to act up the way that it did during those recordings, but I somehow fixed it. At least I hope I did, since I believe that quality is now a bit better than before, so expect future voiceovers to be more pleasant on the ears. Don't really know what else to say other than this apology for this outro, so I think it's a good time as any to talk about the many composers for this project. There really are quite a lot of them throughout the series of Smash games, an actual number of 108 unique composers who arrange music to be exact. That's quite the impressive number. If anyone has been keenly observing, I do put up most of their noteworthy works through other video games that they made throughout their career, so I do hope a few of you guys will check out their earlier works and see how their musical styles differentiate or are similar to one another from their arranged remixes here in Smash to the music that they made for other games. A side note here is that I only did research for their works in 2023, so my information may be a bit outdated. If there happen to be any noteworthy games some composers made music for in 2024 and beyond, I did not include those. So if there are any comments telling me, hey, you forgot to put so-and-so game in their notable works, well, if the game didn't release in that time frame, then I just simply didn't put it there. But if I did forget to put down a more popular game that they made music for that was before 2023, that one is on me, my bad. And while doing research for this project, I was really shocked that one composer, being Kentaro Ishizaka, only made Brawl remixes in his entire video game musical career. And I'm dead serious about that. He only made Brawl music and just dipped to never be seen again. He made some pretty good music too, so respect where respect is due, I guess. Also, a lot of arrangers who made Smash 4 and Ultimate remixes made a lot of music for various Namco titles such as Tekken, Ace Combat, and Pokken Tournament to name a few, considering that those Smash titles were made at the Bandai Namco headquarters. So it kinda made sense that a lot of the composers who worked at Bandai Namco made a few of these remixes to boot. Just thought I'd also mention that as well. Okay, I think that is enough rambling today. A few more videos to go until project completion. I'm really super excited to show you all what I've been cooking. Please look forward to some epic Smash remixes now. Until then, peace out.